Hello, hello. Mic check 1 2 3 4. Hello, Dag. How you doing, bud? Glad you're here. Dag, do you need a link for the shared Google Sheet? You know, it's okay. I think Atlam can monitor it for today, and I'm not sure if Seisu's here or not. But we're going to get started momentarily. It's essentially a Google spreadsheet that we use to manage all the community questions that come in during the stream. And put them in like a list in the order they came in. And then I answer them after each segment that we cover during the stream. Anyway, Atlam, you got it? Fantastic. I think a couple people are in the sheet right now, so. Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's yet another reveal stream for our next update, Fun with Objects. By the way, my name is Mac. I am the community manager for Dungeon Alchemist. It is my honor to share this, fantastic new information and all these features, quality of life improvements, as well as showcase roofing, multi-level, and whatnot. I'm very excited to share this with you today. We'll try to cover everything promptly. And am I really quiet right now? Let me move the mic in a little bit closer. Hey, Shlomo, how you doing? I mean, if someone says something's like cool, or if they have something like that, you can just copy it into the feedback one if you want. But I understand it is just a tab on the bottom of the Google Sheet, so it's pretty easy to jump back and forth. Maybe turn yourself up, Zach. Turn your computer up, turn your headphones up, whatever. Turn this Twitch up, whatever. Sometimes they're rather quiet. The volume's pretty high already. Anyway, let's get right into it. I'm just making sure all the other platforms are live. I finally just got Steam to come up. So we've got Steam, we've got TikTok, we've got Twitch, we've got Twitter, we've got Facebook, and YouTube, all live right now. Welcome, one and all, to the multi-stream, and this is the third reveal of Fun with Objects. We've done 2 reveal streams prior to this. Each of them are pretty much the same. Same itinerary, roughly same information is covered, but we did it 3 different times to allow everyone in our community a chance to try and attend the stream and learn about all the fun new stuff we've been working on. How you doing, Happy Star? Welcome, welcome. So I'm gonna want to just share some rules for the stream really quick before we get started. For everyone watching on every platform, please do your best to adhere to these rules. The first major rule is if you have a question for me during the stream relating to whatever you're seeing, or if you have a question that pertains to the update and you just want to ask it and it may not be pertaining to what we're sharing, still, regardless, preface your question by putting in the word question, and then after that, put your question. It makes it pop. And because sometimes the chat moves really fast during these streams, it'll give the mods a better chance to be able to copy that question and put it into our shared Google sheet that we have behind the scenes that helps me monitor all these questions and answer them in the order they came in after each module that we go through. So we're going to get right into this. So I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page. So we covered the rules and we've done a quick introduction. I just want to say welcome one and all to this reveal. We're going to run for roughly 2.5 hours, but we'll stay on as long as it takes to cover everything. Like one of the streams the other day had some issues. There were some crashes pertaining to like Cloudflare, I think. And we ended up keeping the stream running longer to make up for those drops. So if anything happens, especially that, if the stream crashes, please, please, please be aware that I will be right back. I have no intention of just disconnecting and leaving y'all wondering what's happening. If that happens, it's either, you know, the service that I'm streaming through crashes, or my internet, or maybe my computer. Those two rarely happen anymore. It's more like the other day was kind of a surprise. So if anything like that happens, just know I'll be back as soon as possible. Other than that, let's move forward. Yeah, it is a good weekend so far. Got D&D tomorrow. I'm really excited. I'm going to work on the trailer for the Fun with Objects release a bit more today. I should wrap up the rough draft today. Hoping to send that over to Wim tonight. He'll give his feedback, send it back to me, make adjustments, go into a second draft. You know what I mean? And then have a final draft. Yeah, we go through several iterations to make sure everything's clean. It's fun. It's a fun process, actually, because, you know, it's usually the time of year when I get to work with the team the most. Typically, I'm kind of like my own little island, but this time of year I get to, you know, chat with them a lot and discuss things. And anyway, so let's enjoy the stream today. We're going to showcase a few different things. Let's actually open a different map. For this feature I want to show. Here it is. Found it. So one of the first things I want to talk about in the stream is the changes we've made to light in this next update. Essentially, there was several features that were added that pertain to light and improving light interactivity with Dungeon Alchemist. The first and foremost is that now, I'm sure you've seen in the past when the light from the sun bleeds over the wall and creates shadows and all the objects. You can see it very clearly there as I bend the shadows around and move the sun with that. I feel so powerful when I do this. Anyway, you can now block exterior light or natural light from leaking in from anywhere but windows and doors. So notice the patterning here, that's actually from these windows where it's leaking in. If I open a door and there happens to be light on that side, it'll leak in. So basically, now you can block exterior light from interior spaces with relative ease. There's two places you can do this. One is under the lighting menu, under the advanced tab. You just click block exterior lighting, uncheck it, check it. It's pretty simple. The other is it's also under the settings menu. So there's two places you can find it right here. Block exterior lighting. Really like that you patterning there. See that? Like it's really, really clearly the pattern from that. It's cool. Okay. So that is one part of the update that I'm very excited for. This is going to make maps feel much more traditional and natural with lighting. Obviously, the light leaking over has very much been an exclusive Dungeon Alchemist thing while we've been, working our way through early access and trying to come up with a solution for that. And we finally felt the solution and work that we had was adequate and worth releasing. You would say the pews are too close together. You look at them from this perspective. Excuse me. They're actually quite reasonable. Hey, did I not save that? No. Curse you. My bad. Okay, so each one of them is inside of a 5-foot square, and there's like roughly 2.5, 3 feet in front of each of them to move. They're reasonable. If in D&D space, I think they're reasonable. Alrighty. So, basically, the ability to block that exterior light is going to be a very powerful tool. And of course, buildings will have roofing as well, which will make it feel much more natural that it is blocking that light. Like, that's actually where it was leaking, that pattern. There's a lattice in that one too, so either way, both are cool. Oh, we're getting a raid, are we? Hey, Midwest Dungeon Delvers, thank you for the raid. Much appreciated. Anyway, very interesting development in that regard, being able to block exterior lighting finally, because it's not really realistic that the light would get in over the walls and create shadows off of objects like that, especially when now the walls go up all the way and have a ceiling. It's much more realistic. By the way, raiders that just came in, we're showcasing new features in our next update called Fun with Objects, which is launching July 10th. So we're showcasing essentially a reveal of the various features, quality of life improvements, and whatnot that's being added in this next update. We encourage you to tune in and check it out, learn about it. If you already have Dungeon Alchemist, this is great information to learn. And if you don't, it might be a good time to look into it. We not only offer a demo, and we're actually on sale until the end of the Steam summer sale, which is July 10th, coincidentally the same day we're launching our next update. Nice, Midwest Dungeon Delvers. Glad to hear it. Thank you for your support. Let us continue with this demo. We're going to talk about some other things. Hey, Seisu. So, aside from blocking natural light, now there's another light tool that was added called the abstract lights. Abstract lights are essentially hidden lights that cast light sources but don't showcase the light housing when you export or when you're in first person or cinematic cameras. So essentially they can add lighting to the environment to make it feel more warm and well lit, or add different mood lighting or lights to attract attention to different objects or areas. They're just invisible lights essentially. And there's two types. There is the abstract base light, which is essentially like a lantern and it just casts light in all directions. And then there's the spot lamp, which acts like a spotlight. So you can see it's a much more directed focus. And the lamps, you can change their brightness, you can change their color. So you can go through and change any one of them this way. You can also hide them all or disable the light on one of them temporarily. Kind of, yeah, essentially. They're scenic lights that you can add, you know. Well, here's the thing. Like in a chapel like this, it'd probably be really dark with just candlelight, but in a game like D&D or tabletop games, most of those lights actually shed light in a certain amount of feet, right? And a certain amount of brightness. That's great, and it makes like halos and stuff. This just kind of adds more extensive overlapped light in the area. So, we have now covered natural lighting and abstract lighting, but as you can see in this church, there are several light sources. Here, let's turn it into dark to make it much more obvious. So now the warm light that would be from these candles is actually more evenly cast over these pews. The purple lighting in the background feels kind of like a twilight coming in through the window in the back or whatever. And then the whole area just feels well lit anywhere there's, you know, footpaths or foot traffic. Second. Dag. The other mods are looking at that shared document I mentioned earlier, and they're just loading it up with the questions as they come in. So I'm not ignoring anyone. I answer questions in the order they came in after each module where we showcase various features. So you guys and gals can answer your questions or ask your questions. And then if you can wait patiently until we showcase the light features, then we move on and answer those questions. And then we move on to the next showcase, which is quality of life improvements. And yes, mods or anyone who's present that knows the answers to these questions, feel free to answer questions in chat if you know them. That'd be very helpful. Okay, so we've covered abstract lighting, which is essentially invisible lights. The two types of them, you can change their colors, their brightness, etc. You can change their height, you can rotate them, you can put them all over, and essentially they're invisible either when you want them to be during building by checking this toggle here, which all abstract lighting is under this second tab, or and then, like I said, when you're in first person or cinematic cameras, or when you export, these lights are invisible, but the light they cast remains. Okay, moving on from abstract lights. The next showcase is the quality of life showcase. We're going to cover that in a few minutes after we answer all the questions that have been coming in the last 10-15 minutes. I mean, I'll still miss things because I'm busy showcasing stuff and I don't want to get caught up answering questions while I'm in the middle of a demo. These streams, normally I'll drop everything to answer a question in any stream in AMA format, but these ones, because there's so many questions that come in and a lot to cover in such a short amount of time, I really got to organize it. Anyway. It would sound like one of those like circus kind of pianos. Where when they're playing it, like they throw plates onto the ground as part of the audio, and they pull strings and probably is played by an organist named New Joe. Let's see here. Okay, so the quality of life showcase, we're going to talk about exports next. So let's actually answer all the questions that came in, and we'll go into that next. So the first question I see here is from MTV Extreme from YouTube. In your opinion, Other than, of course, multiple floors, what do you feel is the most consequential feature being added that may not get getting a lot of spotlight? Honestly, I think the ability to block exterior lighting from, interior spaces properly, so it only bleeds in through like windows and doors, etc., is a very powerful feature, and I think a lot of people will be very excited about that. Another feature I'm really excited for is the grid on top of everything, which is something we'll cover later, but it is a more traditional tabletop gaming feel when the grid's on top of everything instead of on top of the floor and under objects. Moving on from that question. Next question is from Lalandra Blue. Will light come through the broken walls? Good question. Let's test it. We're on this map right now where we've been demonstrating light. Let's make it bright during the day. And let's put a broken wall in. Well, let's find a side where the light is coming in. Right there. Right? That's a good spot. Right there. First things first, I'm going to change it to change wall. Right? I want it to change it on both sides. And then I'm going to go to the ruined walls, and I'm just going to find one that's broken. Like that. Okay. Get inside here. It does look like it's breaking through. That actually might be the window. No, it's coming through, clearly. It comes through the break. Look at it. Move this pillar. That is clearly from this break. I think it's not getting much light over these because there's trees here. Here, let's move these. Get out of here, forest. Okay, more bright. Yep, and it even makes shadows of the breakage. Before, the light wasn't even over the top of it, so it was hard to tell. You can clearly see it there. Let's rotate the light so you can see. Yeah, I feel like the I feel like the like human antagonists from Ferngully or like Avatar or something. I just cut down a whole forest just to let some light in. To be honest, Dragon's Rest, you don't really like Dungeon Alchemist is for making maps that you then export for your play style of choice, whether it's print, TV tabletop, projector tabletop, or virtual tabletop, like Foundry, Fantasy Grounds, Roll20, and others. So you make the map in Dungeon Alchemist, then you export it as a video or an image, and then use it in your play format of choice. It's not really advised to play in Dungeon Alchemist while it's possible. It's not really designed for it, if that makes sense. It's more ideal for local play if you're going to do that on like a TV tabletop or something like that. Okay, let's move on to the next question in the list. Dark Rye from YouTube says, do we still have a workaround to have floating structures where we have one on the floor and the rest can be above? I'm sorry, what do you mean? Fix this place. Can you clarify there? Do you mean like how on the stream the other day I raised up and did a floating building? Is that what you mean? As far as I'm aware, that feature still exists, though I do know the devs discovered it, not with my intervention, because there's a lot of testing going on right now, and they tend to cover everything with a fine-tooth comb, so they found it on their own. But I asked them to please consider leaving it in, because it's kind of cool. I don't know. Let's find out. So the other day we found out that if a building exists, right, just like a small room, and you generate it up, say, several floors. I don't want to do that. I'm going to do it somewhere kind of flat, but near the edge of the map. And then you just essentially keep pushing up the structure like this. Another floor, right? So now we're up like 3 floors, so that's like 30 feet off the ground, right? Well, now up at this 3rd level, we could generate a structure that is now floating in the air. We discovered this completely by accident on the stream the other day when we were doing the reveal. I don't think this is an intended behavior, because the way it works, it's not like you can just raise up the floors and do a floating building. But I could now, in theory, have, you know, something like this. And as you can see, there's space underneath it, some pillars sticking through it. Anyway. Unintended feature. But I mean, you could put like some rocks under this, right? And like some vines hanging off of it, and you could do like a floating tower or a giant's kingdom or something. So, as you can clearly see, floating buildings are on the table still, at least as of now. But this could change before this launches on the 10th. The devs could decide to pull this out for any number of reasons. Just because I asked them doesn't mean they'll do it, you know? Okay. So MTV Extreme asks, get a map opening. Get this question right off here. If you have multiple buildings, can you toggle some of them to not have roofs so the lighting can come in from the skylight as it was before? Yeah, you can just remove the roof off of that room. I'm loading another map right now. Stand by. I think I loaded it, right? Okay. So notice, first off, you can have tons of different roofing in the same vicinity, even on the same building, technically. How roofing is divided is by rooms underneath. So if there's multiple rooms under the structure, right? First off, let's just erase the roof. This one has really nothing inside. It's just a blank slate, right? But you can add a roofing and it's just one solid piece. But if there was multiple rooms inside, do an example real. Say this is one room. I don't want to be. I'm going to put a brewery in here. We're just going to add a few things randomly here that don't really matter. Okay. And let's do. Yeah, that's good enough. Just to demonstrate this. So, notice here, this roof is actually different from the others, and one's actually missing. So we could have separate roofing, or if I match the roof, they merge into one mega roof, which is more traditional and normal. But you can have them be separate roofs if you wanted. And there's over 60 roofing types, both diagonal and flat roofing available. So if you want just like a simple flat top roof, you can do that. If you want, you know, angled roofing, you can do that. So if you wanted something to come through like a skylight, you'd probably just have to have a room drawn in the center. How I would do that is like in this room here. Uh-oh. Gosh. Oh, I accidentally jumped over somewhere and was typing something. Okay. So let's say this room, we wanted a skylight in it. How I'd imagine you'd do it. This is just kind of my thought, and I don't know if this will work for sure. But what I do is just remove all this stuff and generate a room inside of this room, which this is mansion bedroom. We'll just generate the same thing. Put it right in kind of like the middle where the skylight would be above. Let's try this. We're going to generate this. So this is a room within the room. And technically we could just match the floor and make it all the same again. Because this has no walls, there's really no distinction that it's a separate room to the human eye at a glance, right? Let's see here. That one. Either way, let's just change. Uh-oh. Froze a little bit. Stand by. Okay, so we just changed those to match. But now, because this thing was a separate square, it's considered a separate room. So at this point, if I was to raise this up, notice there's a separate roof right there in the center, right? So I could either match the roofing at this point and make it one solid roof, or I could take advantage of this erase roof tool and just erase that, and now you have a skylight in that spot. You could make it round, square, rectangular. Todd, the demo is a small slice of the overall pie of Dungeon Alchemist, as most demos are. They tend to be kind of a basic version of things. You really only get access to the forest biome and the ability to build a tavern in the demo. But the full version, yes, you can build dungeons, you can build caves, you can build sewers, you can build all sorts of things. That was a quick question. I just figured that one would kind of throw it over the plate and do it really quick. Question about exporting. This is from Hama on YouTube. When you export the map, does it export the whole building, or do you have to choose which floor? You kind of have some options. Let's go over it. If you hit the export button, so first off, there's two different export options, export and batch export. Batch export is if you want to export multiple versions of the same map, like morning, evening, afternoon, night. We'll go over this in a minute. Regular export still works for multi-level just fine, and I'll show you right now. So you can kind of choose different options. You could say, I want to only do the ground floor. You can do only the current layer, which I'm at the roofing layer, so it would only export the roofing and what's visible around it, right? Alternatively, if you're on a lower layer, you could export just that layer. So whatever layer you're at before you export is important. You can do all layers, right? And it'll split it up into a mega map showing all of the layers. Underground, first floor, second floor, third floor, etc. And even roofing. So you could actually split it up into all layers plus roofs, and it'll essentially export every single thing on the map. I answered Todd's question, Seisu. Oh, thank you, Dragon Rest. So if you look at this here, it essentially gives you many options to break it down. You can do whatever layer you're currently on before you hit the export button, whether it's the ground layer or the roof layer or anything in between. You can do all layers and roofing, or only the ground floor. And I don't know if y'all noticed, but when I hit that export button and change the settings, right, where it's all layers and roofs, it breaks it up into slices, showing you all the different layers kind of in the preview. So you kind of get an idea, including even that new skylight I put on there. So unfortunately, they don't have a clean like glass roof yet. I did mention that. A couple of the like artists mentioned it. They may add it in a future update. You can do a solid roof, and then they have these kind of like object roofs you can put on top of a greenhouse that are like a spire or a flat glass piece. So you can make a custom roof for a greenhouse if you want, that is just solid glass, but it's like got designs in it and stuff. But it is just an object instead of a glass roof. I think eventually they may sort that out. Anyway, let's see here. with the new lights coming up, this is from Lenoil Trave from YouTube. The new lights coming up, would there be a way to create some kind of haze to create, let's say, some God rays? I don't think there's a straight down ray that, or like a visible light. I mean, you could use the abstract kind of spinning soccer ball light to get that same effect, as long as it's bright enough, I imagine. Okay, so let's test this right here. It's dark, right? Do a light like kind of right here. I'm gonna just grab an abstract, which you'll notice there's abstracts all over in this map already. Crash. There we go. So you can put one here, right? And if you just change the brightness, like ultra bright, right? Can't even change the color. But if you have it raised up enough in the right area where there's not brightness all around, it might feel kind of like a God ray. I don't think it would be hyper tightened though. But notice how I'm like like the whole top of this is kind of luminescent in that little beam. The more you raise it up, the tighter that beam gets too. So, but you get far enough away and it's no longer bright. Gonna kind of have to find the middle ground, I guess. I mean, it looks pretty good. But then there's no beam of light, which I think if we had a straight down spotlight, would be great. I think in the Fun with Objects Part 2, they plan to allow you to like rotate objects on any axes, most likely. And if that's the case, then you could just turn this spotlight downward and call it a day. So hopefully that's worked out in the next update. Or the Part 2 of this update. Okay. So, the questions that came either during this question kind of answering session, those will get answered after the next showcase. So we're going to jump back into showcasing stuff instead of answering questions. Okay. Let's see here. So next on the agenda, we've got batch exports. So let's get back into that a little bit. So what batch exporting is essentially a feature that will streamline your exporting if you export more than one version of your map. If you just want if you want export your map once with multi-level, just use the traditional export menu. But if you say export your map with, say, morning and night, or maybe a winter version, or you do an animated and a still version as a backup, stuff like that, or different DPIs, etc., you would want to use batch export. So with batch export, you can create export formats of the most, let's say your most common exports. So let's say you do, you can configure it just like a normal export. So you could set it for your virtual tabletop or, print format, video format, universal VTT, etc. For this case, I just have it set to Foundry. You can set it normal like an image, or do an MP4 if it's a small enough map, or a WebM if it's a larger map. Additionally, you can go through and set the perspective things, lighting, right? And then DPI, normal stuff for an export. But what's really interesting is when you set the configuration, let's say you wanted it to be winter with no grid and in the morning, right? You could come over here. I'm just going to add snow at the end, right? That's my naming convention. You don't have to follow this if you don't want to. But essentially, you now have all of the different aspects of the export format. You add it, it adds it to the list. And if you hit export all selected formats, all the ones that are checked, it'll go through and export them one at a time after another until they're all done. So you could set it and forget it and then come back later. So some of our creators in our community make like a lot of exports of maps. Depending on the creator, I've seen some go, they export 30 versions of a map up to 90 versions of a map. Now, the average GM does anywhere from 1 to 5 versions of their map, sometimes more, though it might be easier to export more variations of your same map if, you have a tool like this. A big plus to this is essentially it's a big time saver on the back end when you're exporting your maps for different variations. Maybe you wanted a night version, a morning version, an animated of both, still of both. Maybe you wanted a winter version just in case your players come back in that area during the winter, things like that. Okay. Talked about batch exports. And the key thing is you got to go through and create all the formats by checking and setting all the settings. Type in a name based on what you know, how you'll remember it, and then hit add. And you can keep adding format after format after format until you have all of them done and go from there. And if you want to update one, you can click on it, right? Say you wanted to change this one from grid to no grid. I'm going to set it to no grid. Notice it showed the grid there in the preview though. I've now changed it. I'm going to type in also no grid, so I just have a visual representation. And I hit save. It actually updated that format and changed it. So ultimately, you can update ones that are listed currently by highlighting them. You can uncheck them to not export them in the batch, and you can add new formats to the batch. Okay. Azuma, that's not a question, that's a suggestion, and there is WebP and MP4, and lots of different formats depending on your platform. You can export in grayscale and regular image. Depending on the platform, though, like Foundry offers image, MP4, MP4 low quality, WebM, etc. So there's a ton of formats across the board, but depending on the platform, we may or may not offer different export types. For instance, with Fantasy Grounds, we only offer the VP8 codec for WebM because that's the only thing they support for animated maps. Okay, we're going to get back into the demonstration. Another thing we are adding in this next update that I think is a very powerful quality of life feature. The devs kind of find it underwhelming, but I think it's cool. Mainly just because it's kind of a standard feature in a lot of tools, right? That we take for granted, but Dungeon Alchemist's been without it for so long, it's awesome to have. The feature in question is recent maps. You can now go through. Oh, Kitty, do you need to get out? Cat was napping when I started the stream. Cat was napping in here when I started the stream, and I didn't want to wake him, so I just let him do his thing, but now he wanted to get out. Probably thinking I'm too loud. Essentially, with this tool, you can jump between maps you've opened recently, saving you a lot of time. Recent maps is great. As you start opening maps that you've been in recent, you know, if you open one map, open another map, you jump through a bunch of different maps during a session. They're all in a list in the ones you've opened most recently. I think it's like the 10 you've opened most recently. Let's see here. Oh, recent maps is pretty straightforward. I'm loading up another map now. Gotta stay hydrated, you know? Oh man, is my green screen bugging out a little bit? What's that? I didn't realize it was kind of doing its job. Don't want that. My whole chin is like... Oh, I know why. Cat jumped off the chair and turned it, and it was blocking the light. Thinking I'm in mobile and wide view. If you go back to our page, you can watch in either or. There's both, my friend. So we're streaming dual format right now on YouTube, vertical and landscape. So portrait and landscape, depending on the viewer's preference, which is awesome that they allow me to do that there. Why is this not loading? Did I crash my computer? We'll see, I guess. There we go. So this map is actually quite impressive. At surface level, it looks like a traditional Dungeon Alchemist map, something y'all have seen many times. A one-level map, or tavern, you know. Lovely little stage there, by the way. Go inside. This is as you jump through the floors, which you can do through this little widget in the top right, by clicking up or down, or you can use your plus or minus keys to jump anywhere between the floors available in the buildings. At surface level, it looks like nothing like a traditional tavern, but yeah, all these different levels are actually just right there available. It's actually a 3-floor, well, 4-floor if you count the basement, right? Basement and 3 vertical floors. Little cellar. I really like this view. I think it looks awesome. So another thing that's coming in the next update is an improvement to the grid tool. You essentially can set the grid on top of everything, right? Before it used to be more like this, where it would be, well, down to the bottom level. When we're on the bottom level, it's very visible. The grid would be on the ground, but any objects on top of it would be on top of the grid, making it kind of hard to tell where a player might be standing or sitting or moving to. Kind of hard to discern where their movement is, right? A more traditional approach was needed because of requests from our community. We made this toggle, which allows you to put the grid on top of everything. So instead of it being under objects and on the floor, it's now on top of everything. Arathon, it's not gonna happen. It really likely will never happen. Strictly put, like, let me just cover this for everyone watching so everyone knows, okay? Dungeon Alchemist wasn't designed with 3D export in mind, okay? And because of this, we designed it with optimization to be, you know, smooth running across as many computers, allow you to build in a 3D space, but it doesn't export or actually have true 3D in it, in essence. The objects in Dungeon Alchemist, they're not like a full-fledged 3D object, like that's ready for 3D printing, okay? Or to be, you know, used in a 3D environment that's more universal. They are very, very simple shapes. Circles, squares, rectangles, with elaborate wallpaper on top of them. They use a tool called texture mapping, and they wrap a texture around a simple shape and make it look very beautiful and detailed. So upon export, if 3D export was just added, 99.9% of everything would be just kind of simple shapes and blobs with no textures, with no animations, with no detail of any kind. Liquids wouldn't render, you know, a lot of things just wouldn't exist. And as a result of which, it would be very underwhelming and not fun. And that's because we didn't design Dungeon Alchemist with that intent, that thought when we started developing it. It was designed with the intent for traditional top-down exports for print, for virtual tabletops, TV tabletops, you know, projector tabletops. 3D, like virtual tabletops and 3D gaming for D&D wasn't even like a mote of dust on the speck of the horizon when Dungeon Alchemist was announced. Anything that had been tried up to that point was either amounted to, you know, massive failure or was very inclusive. So there are a couple options out there, but they're like their own system. You can't import maps from other tools. Some of them allow you to import third-party assets, but very few. They're usually very enclosed, locked-up ecosystems. So, you know, there's tools out there that are great, like Tailspire, 3D map making, 3D VTT, all enclosed ecosystem. But I get questions every day asking us if our maps will work with Tailspire. No, they won't. So in this case, Foundry's module 3D canvas, that's such a stretch in general because it's a module, not a baked in feature to Foundry, meaning it as a module, and this is nothing against Ripper, this is just modules in general. Modules often lose support because either someone lost interest or moved on from the project, felt they were done. Sometimes they transfer between parties, and often they're behind paywalls. So we don't want to put a ton of time in the development and gut Dungeon Alchemist, redesign it from the ground up just to cater to features behind paywalls or isn't really universally accepted as of yet across the market. Not just that, but from what we're seeing with like other companies out there, full 3D VTTs require monster computers to actually manage and do it if it wants to be reasonably detailed and look good and have a good scale. So like, there's tools out there that kind of offer it, but they're just kind of barely scratching the surface, or you need like a streaming PC or a gaming PC to be able to handle it. Now, I know I spent a ton of time answering that, but the thing is, I understand why you want it. A lot of people want to do 3D gaming because it's more immersive. Some people want to 3D print their maps and then play them in person. Others want to take the 3D maps they designed and use them in their own video game development. Remember, we are trying to protect our IP, and we just didn't design it for that. So at the end of the day, it's like asking, a Ford to be a Chevy. We'd have to gut the entire thing that Dungeon Alchemist is, change it to make it work that way. Probably just won't happen. Anyway, moving on. We talked about grid on everything, okay? Let's talk about questions, actually. We did talk about all the quality of life improvements, at least that I find the most interesting. So, yeah, I mean, internet connections, computer connections, distance from each other, ping. There's so many variables in online gameplay. Adding 3D to it actually just makes things so difficult. Why do you think so many online games that are like shooters constantly getting patches, constantly having issues? It's not like an easy thing to manage. So, Arathon, our maps will export as separate images for each level, or separate videos for each level. So when you export this map, it's actually 5 maps, right? So essentially, those would be set up as scenes in Foundry, Fantasy Grounds, Roll20, and then you can use a mechanism like what is it, like the region detection or Monk's active tiles or whatever, where if a player moves to a staircase or a door or a hole, then it automatically teleports the whole group to the new scene. It's possible to do that in those tools. And you'd want to have big maps, especially, separated into separate scenes like this. It's actually very beneficial for you running the game and your players trying to load them. You really want to make sure you produce your game around the weakest link in your chain. One of your players inevitably is going to have potato internet or a computer that's run by a small pack of hamsters. And if that happens, that one player can't load the map because it's over extravagant, huge, animated. I always like to have my scenes separated and have backups. I have animated maps and still maps, and I have, maybe all of them on one, thing where I can move them around, but also separate scenes. Hey, no worries. I'm here to explain it multiple times just in case someone else wants to know too. Just because you're bringing it up doesn't mean you're the only one that wants to know. Anyway, moving on from this, let's get into those questions. Back onto the list. Okay, so Blomo asks, if you were underground, do you have a cave roof? Can it have stalactites? You would have to add them manually like an object, but the problem is currently it would have to be a couple levels below ground. If you did it right at the base level, it'd probably have protrusions sticking out on the above ground. You'd probably have to cover something on the top of like mountain or, yeah, depending on how you set it up, yes, you definitely could. In fact, when you're in caves, you can see trees, like the roots from them, like when you're making a cave under stuff. Currently, the limit, I believe they're going to lock it to is 5 up and 5 down, but I've seen a map with 6 up. So it's possible. I think they may just recommend 5 up and 5 down as like the kind of Goldilocks zone for most users. Beyond that, I mean, think about it. You're now loading 5 layers of a map that would just be normally 40 by 40. So it's a much larger and more detailed map. It's probably going to put a higher demand on your computer. So if you normally only load like a 40 by 40 map, and then you build a huge structure on it and it has 5 levels or multiple structures and underground, it can get a little intense for your computer to run it. In fact, I think they probably should upgrade our change, like update our minimum requirements to kind of reflect some of these changes. But I do think they plan on doing more optimization, both in Dungeon Alchemist and allowing it to utilize more of your computer's power in the future. I mean, this update actually had some optimizations for load times and other things like that that were done on the back end. Let's see here. Shlomo asks, Shlomo from Twitch asks, can I still use the damn files I already created? My existing drawings, whether it would be to work multi-level and lighting. So you can open old maps. When you open old maps after the update, whether it's a map from the workshop, a map you made ages ago, you can open them and edit them, but they'll be considered a legacy map, and the multi-level feature will not function on them. We had to change a lot of objects, depreciate tons of older objects, and change objects to fully support multi-level. Essentially, a lot of fundamental changes were made to support it, and as a result of which, old maps will be it'll be the first instance in our entire development cycle of early access that old maps will not be fully backwards compatible with the new version. You can still open them, you can still edit them, you can still export them, you can still download maps from the workshop that are old. In fact, let's just open one and show you. If you open an old map, any type of old map, small, big, doesn't matter, it will have a lock on this icon. Hey, yeah, the yawning portal will be super easy to do after this update, Hallister. So essentially, very, very close. There are a few yawning portals that have been shared on our Steam Workshop by very diligent map makers, but this new update will really make yawning portals super easy. You know, pit in the center, multi-level, you know, terraced inn and bar. So notice this old map here, it has a lock on this icon. I didn't say legacy objects won't work. I said legacy maps won't work with multi-level. I said some legacy objects were depreciated and replaced. Big difference. Going into that, essentially what happened there is because multi-level needs stairs that angle and fit directly between the two floors, stairs had to be adjusted and changed to work with this. Pillars, for instance, were given a facelift, and now they adjust dynamically to the size of the room and shape of the room. So if the room keeps getting vaulted, the pillars go up, if that makes sense. So you have more options in that regard. And instead, because old pillars would have cut off at a certain height, had the weird like cross section, would have looked weird. So we had to redesign a bunch of objects. So a lot of objects that were depreciated or removed were essentially replaced with new versions that are either facelifted or more compatible with multi-level. I'm gonna load a big map with lots of roofs, and we'll put some. Hey, Aiko, how are you? I see you there. How'll be it, lady? Been up to? Yes, Henry, multi-level and roofing is coming in this update, among a ton of other stuff. That's actually the point of today's stream. We're showcasing and revealing the various features, quality of life improvements, and whatnot from our update launching on the 10th, so just 5 days. Giving y'all a kind of a sneak peek so you can kind of anticipate and understand what's coming. This next map I'm loading is massive, so it's going to take a moment. You've been able to add round rooms in Dungeon Alchemist for the last year now. It was a feature added in our Magic update. But yeah, it's very possible to do round, diagonal, all sorts of different shapes. Brick, I mean, we're kind of an indie company, so we kind of go under the radar sometimes. We've only been available the last 3 years in early access, and we kind of did a Kickstarter during the pandemic, so I could see why, like, maybe some people haven't heard of us. But Dungeon Alchemist is a map making and immersion tool that allows you to build beautiful, detailed maps and export them for your virtual tabletop of choice, or if you would prefer to print them or export them as a digital file to use on like a projector or TV tabletop, that's on the table as well. Go to the very top of this. What we're gonna do is add some snow to this. Someone asked about that. So anytime you have a map, if you want to winterize it, add snow to it, you just go to the terrain tab. And under here it says change terrain type. Go to the tab where it says weather, set it to snow, hit change terrain. Winterizes said map. So now we just added winter to this whole. Looks great though. It adds it to all like top spaces. Oh, out there a little bit. Even in the little internal courtyard here. Well, Brick, it's actually even more serendipitous. It's fortuitous, I would say, because today Dungeon Alchemist is actually on sale for 20% off. It was a great time to check it out. We got a free demo, though. You can see how it runs on your computer before you invest any money or time into it. And otherwise, though, it is a very, very powerful tool when you have the full version of it. So just keep that in mind. The demo's kind of limited in scope by comparison. This castle is absolutely massive, by the way. Snow just really make it chunk that bad. And I swear I used to be able to browse this map and it wasn't this slow. So let's just switch to low quality temporary so I can see frames out. Yeah, that's a bit better. We're going to drop a token. Hopefully this doesn't crash. totally is. Of course, the war table room is. Look at this big table. You have this war table asset now, so you can make these big, elaborate, like, battle scenes. Looks like, you know, generals are preparing. Ah, got stuck. Can I not climb up these? What the heck? Anyway, y'all get the idea. Big maps, totally possible. Yeah, I might be too tall. Okay. Get into the next showcase, which is the object showcase. I'm going to show you one more castle, though, and then we'll do the object showcase. I love how castles look in this next update. So cool. They do take quite a bit of processing power to build like a big one, so keep that in mind. Yeah, they kind of probably are, especially if they're a window. Hoping when we get like freestanding windows and doors, that'll solve that problem because they'll be more substantial, if you will. So this one's cool because it has like a basement. There's like cells, right? Fighting pit. Up a level. Balcony here on the inside. Oh, didn't realize that was just hanging. Oh. Load up a blank map projection. While this loads, we're going to be showcasing objects and object improvements in this next portion of the reveal in the stream today. And then after that, we'll be showcasing, after we showcase all the object improvements and new objects in the showcase today, we'll be answering questions for a little bit, and then we'll be moving on to another showcase, which is building. So we'll showcase multi-level, new room types, multi-level, level switching, roofing, building underground, balconies, etc. We've got a lot to cover still, so let's get into it. So, my favorite object, the stump. Excuse me. If you are familiar with Dungeon Alchemist, you're familiar that you can place objects by hand, but you can also place objects with a brush. The object brush speeds things up tremendously, but it also lacks, tons of objects. It's kind of a fine focus of objects that we've handpicked or palettes that we've picked, right? Now you can take any object select it, go to the object, the paint object menu, and then create a brush from said object, allowing you to quickly, add any object to the map with ease. Okay. So, essentially you can take any object, turn it into a brush. It can make slightly different versions because of the settings offered in the advanced menu. So not only can you set the brush size and density or the brush shape, is it scattering, is it doing them in order, is it a circle or a line, but you can also go in and say, hey, I want the object to rotate, I want it to scale randomly, I want its scaling average to be very big or very small or somewhere in the middle. So it gives you an assortment. By the way, the advanced version of the brush and these like extra brush types were available in the Magic update, but this just expands upon it because now you can turn any object into a brush. So if you go into, say, the furniture menu, and you're like, man, I really want just a bunch of bar stool. I put that. At the first bar stool. A lot of bar stools. Let's get the density down a little bit. Still too many. Let's turn that density way down. Huh. Wow. Better. That's insane, though. Trim, there's not currently axis rotational control, so no. It just rotates on this spinny portion there. It'll resize and rotate it all along this axis. And that's it. But there's not full axis rotation yet in Dungeon Alchemist. Likely will be addressed in this part 2 of Fun with Objects, with the next update after. Let's see. Cover the custom object brush. Universal object scaling is quite interesting. So, often I'm, presented with the question from our community, how do I get objects to be all similar size? Because, I set one down and set it manually, and the old method of getting objects to be the same size was you put down an object, set it to a size you want, and you started copying off of that object by pressing this plus or holding shift as you placed it, so it would create a duplicate automatically. And while this is great, it's kind of tedious. There's this new feature in the object menu next to the collision toggle, which very powerful tool. If you're not aware, the collision toggle is absolutely astounding. If you don't know what it is, ask in chat. The mods will explain it to you. Moving on, though, to the new feature, the Universal Object Scaler. So essentially, let's say you wanted to scale your objects in the object menu to be much smaller, to be more accommodating, maybe to like a halfling or a gnome village, or you just wanted smaller objects in general for your home instead of big ones, or maybe you're making something at a giant scale. This toggle allows you to, let's put the base chair here actually to see. Chase lounge, right? That's the base 100% size of the chase lounge. If you set it to 50%, it's now shrunk every object down in the object menu to 50%. And when you pull objects out of the object menu, they'll all be at that. So here's a 100% chair. Here's a 50%. Go up to 200%. Now, keep in mind, you can scale objects up and down, and you can break these boundaries already. If you disable collisions, An object can be scaled up pretty much infinitely up or down. But the point of the universal object scaler is to speed up scaling the entire object menu to objects of a reasonable size that can be used in most settings. So child size objects or halfling size objects, all the way up to giant size objects. So if I wanted to go beyond what 200% is, all I'd just do is make sure collisions is disabled and grab the object's corners and make it massive. That's something that the collision toggle affords. Otherwise, you hit kind of a certain limit and then it's locked on both ends until you disable collision. Collisions being disabled allows you to merge objects together, resize them up and down without limitation, unless of course the object scaling is locked to begin with, like a wall-mounted object or a pit. Third, it allows you to raise objects up and down, so you can have like floating objects or put objects on top of each other more easily. When you disable collisions, you enable the fun. That's something we say on the stream all the time. Anyway, moving on from that. So we discussed the custom object brush. We discussed universal object scaling. Let's talk about modular objects. And to showcase that, I actually want to open a map. Let's see here. For that map to open, sorry. Oh, wait, no. Correct, Dag. Though I did establish that in a teaser like a week ago, so I'm kind of worried why you don't know that. But yes, for those that aren't aware, the universal object scaler will work on any objects except for objects that have like a locked pit type thing situation going on. Like they cut a hole into the ground or stairs that go upward and, you know, cut a space into the floor above them. I did find out, though, that wall-mounted objects can be resized because of with the universal scaler. If you take a lamp, for instance, right? Look at this lamp here. And that's 100% right there, right? So that's just the normal size. But if I set this to 50% before I pull the object out, it now is much smaller. Before, it was very difficult to resize wall-mounted objects. You had to use like a workaround. This is still, I think, a workaround technically, but it works. It's funny. Look, watch. You could see it kind of scaling up in the background as I do this. Kind of hard. I just discovered this on accident, that you could, like, as long as the object hasn't been placed, it can be resized, or if you rescale it before you pull it out, it's also sized. So the universal object scaler is a very useful tool in that regard. Let's talk about modular objects. Map multi-level bastion. Right here in this section is a great example of a modular object. So this is actually a bunch of pipes that are all snapped together, little objects that are really fun to kind of build out and snap together. I'll show you that in a minute. They can be animated, some of the parts. But you can make like whatever shapes and weirdness with these pipes that you want, kind of customize it out into a very bespoke, like boiler setup, or like a potion brewing station, or, you know, a everlasting gobstopper machine, whatever you want it to be. Now, there is multiple objects that take advantage of this new mechanic. When you place an object that supports a modular object feature, here, let's go to the front of the house where we can see more, and I'll do this. Let's grab any number of the modular objects. One is railing, right? So you could just take like a normal rail. We're going to scale it down to like maybe 80. Let's do 75%. That makes it smaller, right? I'm going to put it right here, place it. Now that I've placed it, this object triggers this extra tab in the object menu. If you click it, notice it shows all the objects that can snap to these 2 control points on this rail. And since I scaled this rail down, it automatically recognizes that when I try to attach pieces. So I could just click an attachment, automatically adds it. You kind of get the idea, though. Little bump out here. Little guy. Oh, wrong way. Isn't that pretty neat, though? So instead of them placing them one by one, you could go quickly, efficiently, do a whole structure or a whole set of rails. You could go up. Here, let's add some upward rails here. Do a whole roller coaster if you really wanted to. Dag, didn't I just explain the auto scaling thing? But anyway, yeah, so when you universally object scale an object and then it's part of the modular object tool, it'll automatically scale any attached to it to feature. But yeah, so it works with rails, it works with pipes, big and small pipes. So sewer pipes, little like all sorts of finagled, like this here is a smaller pipe that's like, you know, to divert like, you know, steam or whatever. I did this and I attached it to the stove here and I followed the whole thing up until it made a chimney. So now there's like a chimney for the stove here. By the way, there's a few new chimney objects that were added in the update. Brick and pipe chimneys that are like a single long piece. I put them and attached them in a few points in this build, and then I put, those are geysers in there that I shrunk down because they make smoke. So I just kind of hid it inside of it. Anyway. Sorry, Dag, I'm just giving you a hard time, buddy. Let's see here. So, this structure is actually several levels. You've got the roofing, right? You've got the second floor. You've got the base level and an underground level, which actually has access to several points on the property. There's like a ladder going into the storehouse where there's a hatch here. It's actually navigable in first person. There's a little staircase going down to another doorway. Oh yeah. Underground is definitely possible in this update. We didn't want to give you multi-level and not give you underground. Yeah, me and Dag kind of argue like brothers a little bit. We've just known each other a long time. We give each other a hard time. But you can actually like have a doorway leading into underground areas where it's like cave and just dig out and have like accessible underground areas that are matched with like structured areas. So dwarven cities are definitely going to be much easier to do. You can essentially have caves not in the cave biome anymore with relative ease. But like I've known Dag now a while and it's always kind of been the par for the course. We just give each other a hard time. Here, let's walk around in first person so you can get the tour of this place. I'm actually really proud of this build. This was built to shoot like teasers and stuff for the trailer, but it also will function as the bastion for my group, my play group, which is meeting up tomorrow for the first time in a month. Really excited. But we were awarded a bastion after our last mission, and I spoke to the DM and I asked him if I could build it up and you know, because I have all this access to this new update and build like a really cool Bastion. So this essentially follows the Bastion rules from 2024 for 6-player group. Got a little dining hall with glass windows so you can see out. Little bar. Kitchen. Notice the ceilings here. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know how the tiles of the ceilings are picked. Aiko, if you're still here, if you know, that'd be awesome. Let me know. I think it's just discerned at random. There's a bunch of them and it just picks them at random based on the floor below. So if it's wood, it'll put a wood above. There might be some fancier wood ones and there's some not fancier ones. I don't know what necessarily discerns it, but like right here, it looks like shredded broken wood on the ceiling. And I think that was the first floor that was in this room. But I wish it would update to be more reflective of the current floor. I just don't know how to change it. I don't think there is a way. It's just an automatic setting. So if it's, you know, not something you're happy with, I don't know how to change it, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's a future update thing for sure. Fully navigable, though. Back to the front room. So this is kind of like the prospect of the future here. You have for your players and your groups. I mean, group bases, forts, compounds, mansions. Going to be so easy to make now, especially with multi-floor available, like at your discretion here. It's so nice. Check out my workshop. That's the other chimneys here. Ran them up from the furnaces. I thought it looked pretty cool. Also, I made a custom glass blower over here. I get creative sometimes and come up with items that we don't have. Glass blowing station. Those windows are nice, huh, Chim? The little bubble windows, they look really cute, actually. Just reminds me of old school glass, you know, like they try to get it as flat as they could, but this is what they'd end up with a lot of times. Anyway, so yeah, multi-level is, it's quite amazing. Now, let's get back to modular objects really quickly because I got a little distracted while we were talking about this place. Uh-oh. There we go. So remember earlier I showed you the rails. We can do pipes. There was that kind of fun like alchemical pipe, right? There's like centrifuges and stuff like that. Okay, let's set the scale up bigger. Let's set it up to like 150%, okay? Start it like that with a big centrifuge. I'm gonna raise it up a little bit. And then notice it's got these connection points. First off, you could animate this. You can change the colors of the whatever is inside of it here. And it'll spin, do its thing. But you can also click these connection points and start adding new parts. So you want a straight piece here, a bend there, another straight piece here, a junction. Or you can grab parts from the menu. Huh, weird. Off. They're ever so slightly off. What is going on here? Great. Modular objects are just randomly rising. Let's open a new map and hope it's just not this map being buggy. Just refresh the TikTok chat because it looked like it wasn't moving. Just want to make sure it was okay. the way, probably going to get some weirdness because we're in a dev build that occasionally does crash. So little things like that where it's like quick wait or sluggishness is just it trying to load. Okay. Let's see here. So let's get back into those improv objects. I'm wondering what was going on there. Same thing. Darn it. I'm gonna have to record that later and send it to the devs. Let me take a note of this. Modular pipes rising between placements. So I can't really showcase this right now because it's not working. But it could just be the current build. But essentially, you're supposed to be able to snap a piece in there. Something's wrong. Go. But it should attach right to this piece automatically if I select a new piece. And it's raised up ever so slightly each time I add a new section. Notice that? Going up and up and up, something's up. Like becoming a staircase. Well, we discovered a bug in today's build, so got to report that, but bear with me, people. As you saw in the previous map, there was one all built up. You can do all sorts of weird shapes and sizes and all over the place, and get them to meet back up and have different junctions and whatnot. There's hundreds of attachments for this one alone, or like dozens and dozens, close to 100 at least. And then there's old pipes, both the small gray pipes and the big gray pipes, and rails that will get this treatment. And in the future, things like ships, boats will get that treatment as well, allowing you to build custom modular ships on the fly. I always find bugs, Jim. I think I'm a harbinger for bugs, like big ones. I know how to find the biggest, worst bugs. Yeah, this is totally normal procedure. In fact, one time I delayed an update by like 3 months, but from a bug I found. Hangs my head in shame. It's my claim to fame, I guess you could say. But had it not been found, it would have been delayed anyway because we would have like had to fix it. Someone would have found it. Don't do this to us. That one looks like a simple fix. Probably just something they overlooked in a recent patch. I'll point it out in a video to them. I'm sure they'll fix it up, no problem. You know what I'm gonna do before we move on to that or on from it? I'm gonna try it at 100%. I'm not gonna resize it. We're just gonna try like a base like thing without any resizing. Hey, it works there. Weird. So if you rescale the object at all using the universal scaling, it does that. Huh. I wonder if we raise it at all if it does that. Let's try raising it. Could be raising it or it could be scaling it that causes this problem. Huh. So it was scaling it that caused the problem. Interesting. Interesting. I'm gonna have to bring that up with them. So here we put a little like gauge on there. And there's attachments that aren't in this menu here. So you can go through and find one that you like that's a little different. Select it, right? And then as long as you have snapping on, it'll find that attachment and just snap right in. And you just grab one of the other ones. Here, let's put one of these little doohickeys in here, actually. 1 second. Let's go down with this little pipe piece right there. But it's pretty fun to play with this. I've spent like a couple of hours just dinking around with it, and it gets pretty addicting to just kind of link these pipes up, make little fun, whatever it is, you know, boiler or whatever thing, and it's interesting to say the least. Put a little boiler on top. What is going on there, guy? Huh, it doesn't recognize that as a bottom, so maybe it doesn't. There we go. Yeah, it's fun to build something up like this, but you get the idea. And by the way, you can change the goop colors to different stuff. So it could be, you know, blood, it could be a potion machine, it could be anything. It can make everlasting gobstoppers, like I said earlier. At the end of the day, it's up to you how you decide to make it work. There's tons of vertical junctions, both with like these valves on them, right? Here, I could put a valve on top of something just by itself. They have horizontal, vertical bends of all kinds. I mean, there's tons and tons. They have these little faucet pieces or these little spinny things that you can attach. That another. Anyway, it's a silly. At the end of the day, I love it. It's just a fun little gadget to build things out. Yeah, it could be pneumatic tubes for messages. It could be, you know, a boiler. It could be some alchemist or artificer invention. You know, any number of things. Sky's the limit, people. You could have it running all throughout a building, snaking through every corridor. You know, like some massive machine. Oh, it can handle curves, Mosey. There's several bends on it, actually. Small, large, different angles. But yeah, I know you're joking about the commercial. Anyway. I think the liquid ones always have liquid in them. So I don't know if there's a clear one without liquid, but that would be a great suggestion. Here. That one kind of doesn't have liquid in it. So if you pause it. Oops. Yeah, the clear ones would be. We should bring it up with the devs to offer just some clear pipes in the next version of the update. So it could be more like, you know, just glass, but also it'd be like a pneumatic entrance for sending messages. But this one could work as long as it's not been turned on. Kind of works to a degree. Yeah, I could have fun with this all day, but I'm not going to. Y'all get the idea, though, right? I hope you understand kind of how this works. And that's the cool thing about the modular object tool. Now that we have it, we can start implementing more objects that support it, right? Not just several. But this works for several different things. Like I said, rails, pipes. So you can build out a whole rail track really quickly, you know, just from these attachments. Oop, I went down instead of up. This is Minecraft, though, now. Y'all get the idea, though, now, right? Oops, thought I was typing. These big pipes, same thing. Whether you've scaled them down before you start or whatever. Oh, you get the idea. Cool. Let's generate a new map. Clean this one up. The next feature I want to show is improved object linking. So a bunch of objects in the past used to link together. There was like a connected pole that had a rope that would link between, or some like pillars that had chains that would link between. I'm sure you've seen those objects in the past, or at least stumbled across them accidentally, or seen other maps with them in them. Map's taking forever to generate. Reload D. Clunky. There we go. So with a connected pole or a pillared chain, or maybe a crane, right? A bunch of objects that have these weird connections on them. So you can click this. Let's say you have several of these around, right? In the past, they would all kind of connect together like a big spider web and make, you know, a connection between all of them. But now you can say, hey, let's connect this one to this one. And that one too. Or no, I don't want that zigzag. Move over to this one. We'll do a connection and we'll have it connect to this one. Now we can have a big square going around. See? It does not work with the electric arcs, I'm afraid. I guess they internally decided against doing it with the electric arcs for some reason, but this was brought up pretty much at every reveal stream so far. People are asking if it will work with the electric arcs, and unfortunately, that is not the case. It is the one connection they didn't make it work with, which in my opinion would have been the coolest one, because it would have been a little bit more controllable. But I guess electricity is also, you know, kind of hard to control at the end of the day. I'm hoping I shared your feedback from the first couple of streams, told the devs this. I'm hoping they'll take it to heart and implement that connection in the next update for electrical items. So technically, you could have it connect to this, or if you have like a bucket down here. Or a platform or whatever, then you can have it connect to, you know, a specific crane instead of every crane in the vicinity. So a lot of, I mean, like this rope thing has been around for a while, but it would just make like a spider web connecting between all of them, right? Like this, essentially. It would do something like this and get way, way webbed out and crazy. And people didn't want that. They wanted it to be a specific shape or do a specific thing. Now you have a lot more control over what it does. And I'm hoping they expand this to more and more objects over time. Okay, improved object linking. So let's talk about some of the new objects in the update. I'm going to showcase a bunch of them after I clear this little space out. So let's use this as a little stage, shall we? And I'm just going to go to the new objects section. Just start grabbing things. So obviously you see the abstract lights. There's some cool little alchemist tables that have been done. There's a weeping angel. A lot of objects Our old objects that got facelifts to make them look more impressive, like the wood grain and metals got improved on a bunch of old assets, like some of the cages and stuff. Some assets got a facelift, other assets got depreciated and replaced, and there's still hundreds of new objects altogether. This one here, the Archimedes mirror, pretty cool. Cool little piles of ashes. The auditorium benches, these would be great for like a lecture hall or something, and like a school or whatever. Little new bathtub here. Got this little, well, it's not little, blast room engine thing. It's cool. And that's what I used as the glass blower in that other house. It's like a big blast room furnace, but you can shrink it down if you wanted to. Change the outside color here. Simple little things like boots. I actually think that's great. There's these little bowls of food. Oh, even like a little thing like a broken bottle. Nice little addition, right? But these bowls of food are interesting. Let me show you. You can change what's inside of them. So there's like stews and goulashes and soups, or like a batter. So it's just more versatile in your like layouts for your kitchen. There's actually a bread bowl that does the same thing. All of these little items here, these are part of the war table, but they're actually rather large. You can just shrink them down, put them on the war table, or they can be a bust display piece, whatever. Tons of new little arches, buttresses, new garden items, or, you know, farm items, cabbages, red cabbages, unfurled, furled. There's actually lettuce. There's carrots that are downward facing now. So they're perfect for crops. Leeks are downward facing. There's rotten, like cauliflower and stuff too. New instruments like a cello. New cheeses. I know y'all will be excited about that. We got blue cheese and I guess what looks like a Limburger cheese. Lots of new armor pieces and armory stuff. Armor pieces laying on their sides. Wall hanging armor pieces. Excuse me. I was grabbing it. This little teapot house, so you can actually like put stuff inside of it, decorate the whole thing technically. Updates to the clone tanks. The clone tanks have the modular objects on them too, the little linkages. So you can place a clone tank, and I think this one's just opens now, but it doesn't have the linkages, but this one does. So you can open them and, you know, change their goo and stuff now. A little bit more interactive than before. And they've got improved textures and whatnot, but this one you can actually run out all the pipes from it and do, you know, like crazy little laboratory schemes. Link up a bunch of clone tanks all together. You know, stuff like that. You get the idea. What else do we got in here? There's some corpses, which I found shocking. I never in 1,000 years thought we would add corpses to DA. There's some new like cowhide skins for like rugs on the floor. These could go on like a table or like a leather working station. There's a sheep skin as well, I noticed. A church organ. I didn't know we had that, actually. That's dope. I did not see that. I must have missed it. A little door inside? Jeez, is that like a secret compartment? Change the music, it looks like, to an image. Funny. It looks kind of like a secret little, maybe an access panel to repair it, but it also could be a place to hide. You know? Like a stash or whatever. Okay. What else do we got here? Honestly, I didn't even notice we had that. So there's some raised garden beds that are pretty neat. Different, you know, sizes. Okay, let's erase this. It's getting too intense here. Oh, I didn't want to paint garden beds. I wanted to erase them. Silly. These are neat. These little toppers, the cupola little toppers. These are great if you want to put them on like a greenhouse. You can make one big one or several square ones to fit that match like the size. So if you wanted like a see-through greenhouse or a different roof style, there's going to be some object roofs too that are neat. Round object roofs and some of these clear glass ones and like these dome ones. So there's a few that are still object based if you want, or you could use the roof generation tool to make round rooms or round roofs. I mean, oh man, I'm gonna say these letters here are some of my favorite new objects. Not even joking you, these are just so simple, but they look so good on like a desk or like a table. I scaled them up so they're easier to see, but envelope. Little cat bed. And change the color of the bed's, you know, mattress there. These little feeder windows or feeders for like your stables and whatnot. Menageries. Oh, we're getting raided. Dang. Oh, Lieutenant Cheeks. Well, let me salute you and thank you for the raid. Much appreciated. How you doing today? How was your stream? And you're joining us as we're showcasing improvements and new objects and items in our next update, which is launching 5 days from now on the 10th of July. It's called Fun with Objects Part 1. But today's stream is a reveal stream intended to showcase all these new features. So we encourage you to stick around, ask questions, and check it all out. And by, I'm trying to get to more objects. So there's tons of new like grave markers and stuff. You can actually press tab before you place it. It's a variant. And so you have tons of different variations of graves now. I complained to Wim because I said, man, we have like a bunch of grave markers, but most of them are like denominational to a religion that's not even part of most tabletop fantasy settings. Is there any chance we could get gravestones, more diversity of them, and have different options on them so they look different? And what I'm doing is I'm pressing tab. As long as the object hasn't been placed, it'll cycle through all these variants. So there's different headstones, and all the different headstones have different variants, which will now give you a lot more diversity for your grave sites. Right? I was running out of homebrew gravestones, man. Oh my gosh. I feel like I tapped that well really dry, right? Like, I had made a lot. Actually, it was like a personal complaint. Little key. There's like a gold key, but I like little things like that. Little objects that just add a lot of detail. Some objects like these little market stalls, they just got a facelift, better textures on the wood, stuff like that. But others are brand new objects like these little brick pieces. I put these in the kitchen in one of my builds on the brick wall. It added a lot of detail to it. But yeah, I mean, some of these objects you've seen before, others are just updated. Some are updated versions of old ones to give them a facelift, and others are like brand new objects. Little bird nest here. What else do we got? Tons of little stands. I think there's this new piano here. Or was this an old one they just facelifted? See, it's hard to tell with some of the objects. Oh, this little Hendrik puppet. I love it. Like a marionette. We got some rocking horses. This decrepit ruined tower. Anyway, oh, this is another one of the skylights. Like a skylight, you could put that on a roof or put that on a greenhouse. Look great, right? Anyway, I think overall, lots of neat new improvements. Fire looks really. Here's some stable dividers. There's always been 2 roasted pigs, I thought. There was one that was like spinning and one that was just like sitting on a tray. Oh, there's a new roulette board and a roulette wheel. And I'm not even gonna, I'm just gonna let you know that the roulette wheel does spin. Okay. And it has RNG. So if you want to have a casino night with your players, by all means, I guess. In the patch notes, there's a list, kind of an expansive list that goes over quite a bit, but not all of the new objects are in it because it takes forever to list them all. There is a feature in Dungeon Alchemist that there's like a hidden menu you can access. Can't remember the hotkey for it right off command. I think it's like Control-Shift-B. Yep. Control-Shift-B opens the advanced menu. And it essentially can export a list of all the new objects as like a spreadsheet, and you can look at it as just the names of the objects. This feature, you can export all objects in the entire object menu, a list of them as a spreadsheet, all objects in the current map, or only new objects. The point of this is if you're making a map like a map builder and you want to know how many, let's say you were building a bunch of ships fighting each other in a massive battle, or a base that has a bunch of cannons, right? You want to know how many cannons you put in the map without counting them by hand. This will tell you you have put this many cannons in it. You know, that kind of stuff. Do your best, Atlam. Try and get them caught up. It's okay. I'm going to be answering questions here after this. We've been showcasing objects for fun. But yeah, if you press play on the roulette wheel, it'll spin and randomly land on a number. There's a 31. So technically, it could act like a functional roulette wheel. There was a 9. I guess you could do like a casino night with your players. I might add a list of all the objects in the update to the wiki or somewhere after the update. But ultimately, we do have tools internal that allow you to access these things. And this isn't necessarily hidden. This code is like the access code, Control-Shift-B. The hotkey is available in our wiki in the hotkey section of our wiki. So it's like, it's known. And I share it whenever I can. Okay, so we showed off some of the objects in the update. Let's go to a new map. Actually, let's open up one of the cooler looking maps. Thank you, Tim. Hey, see you later, Dag. We're going to be answering questions that were asked during the last 10-20 minutes, so if you have any questions, y'all make sure stick around to get them answered. Can I tell you about optimizations on the back end, Shlomo asked. So I do know one of our lead developers was speeding up. I don't know exactly what they did, but they've just been going through the code, cleaning it up, so it's just more optimized and runs better. It's always good to get a second pair of eyes on things, and that's what Pt-1, or one of our lead developers, has been doing. Let's see here. Hieronymo, the roof height angle will be influenced by something. There's different rooftops. Some of them have sharper angles. Some of them have rounder angles. Currently, that's the only discernment at the moment. Some of them are more like a straight. Some of them are more like a spire. And some of them are more like a dome or a rounded. So it just depends on which rooftop you pick. Let's see here. VCat asking if the map roof size was increased for size objects. Currently, they clip at the top, and you can see the inside objects when exporting the map if the map is too big. You can increase the room's vaulting size so it make it a taller room if you're worried about how objects will fit in it. But like the walls and doors themselves and windows don't scale up. You know, they're kind of big to begin with. But that being said, this question's kind of a bit of word salad, so I'm trying my best to work with it. They don't flip, really. And a lot of objects have been redesigned and tweaked so they don't clip. Pretty much thousands of objects have been redesigned so they don't clip through to the next floor now. And if they do, they were likely intended to, or, you know, have a different purpose. Anyway. Let's see here. Lenoil Trave on YouTube asks, how is defined the under the floor ceiling? You know, I don't know what picks this, actually. I'm not sure. I should ask the devs and find out. I'll try and find out, but I think it's dependent on the floor below that you first put in the room. If you change it later, it doesn't change to match, I don't think. Based on my observations, at least. When are multi-levels going to be added? Henry asks. July 10th is when this update is launching. So it's already added. We're just testing it and doing last minute checks on the backside, making sure everything's ready for the update. Shlomo asks how much RAM and how much storage space do those castles take up? Good question. I have 128 gigabytes of RAM, and at one point I noticed like up to 20% of my RAM was getting used, but that was on like a massive 6-story map with thousands of objects. So, I mean, I think, you know, you just got to pace yourself based on your system and start to feel out how much your computer can handle. When this update comes out, I encourage everyone not to just jump into a massive map and start building multi-story structures like crazy. Kind of push the limits of your system until you feel like it's still a comfort area for you to build maps. Next. Tom, last name on YouTube, asks, would it be possible to create a fog of war in a second screen display instead of a full VTT? That's almost most of us need to play within DA and play on a table. I mean, if you're playing on a table at home, why not cover the table with like a sheet, or make some clouds out of some cotton, or cut out some custom roofing with like, or other things, or like a fog of war with like a big sheet of like a big black sheet of construction paper or something. I mean, at home, you have these physical options, you know, that are more of a requirement for online. Fog of War, it likely won't be implemented in something in DA anytime soon, at least not until we leave early access, because we have so many plans and promises from our Kickstarter, and that wasn't one of them. Fog of War seems more like a gameplay feature, and Dungeon Alchemist is more for setting up the gameplay through support, creating maps, immersion, etc. if we do that, it would be part of the VTT Lite scope of features that our devs say they want to do once we leave early access. So essentially, I mean, using Dungeon Alchemist as it's not intended, you're bound to run into situations where it's like less than desirable. We don't really recommend using it for TV tabletop play, despite it being functional to do so. You know, you can turn on the grid and disable the UI, and pretty much it's perfect for TV tabletop play, other than Fog of War. I get it. At the same time, though, I mean, it just is something that's not a high priority because it was never promised or planned in our initial Kickstarter kind of run. So if it does get added, it will be after we have developed all of our stretch goals, delivered on all our, you know, promises from our Kickstarter, and left early access. Let's see here. Slider asks from YouTube, in the next update, we'll be able to select several items, be handled at the same time or not. In Fun with Objects Part 1, no. Fun with Objects, this update got split into 2 parts. And most likely Fun with Objects Part 2 will entail that feature, though I can't say for certain. I just know it definitely won't be in the first part. There are a few features on our roadmap the devs want to try and tackle, but they're kind of difficult to do so. You know, rotating on all axes, grouping objects up and moving them as a group, being able to create custom objects by grouping objects together into variants. These are things they want to address, but it would have pushed this update till December had they done so. So rather than make you all wait until the end of the year, they split the update into 2 parts, or releasing, you know, all the stuff we've been showcasing today, multi-level roofing, etc. A ton of new objects, a ton of facelifted objects, a bunch of new features. And then Fun with Objects Part 2 will likely tackle some of those more difficult requests that weren't necessarily promised as part of our Kickstarter, but they'd like to try and add them to make Dungeon Alchemist more full-featured. Arathon asks if there's snappable points. It snaps to 100. That's the main part in the object scaler. Otherwise, everything in between is pretty easy to move across, but it will snap right around 100. In fact, between 95 and 100 is really hard to do. It automatically snaps past 95, or 105 down to, you know, whatever. Oh, I guess it's 110. Weird. Huh. I'll bring that up. But yeah, on one side it's got a 5% snap and the other is a 10%. I wonder why. Inconsistent. Okay. Questions here. Flomo asks, are there gradual bends to what? I don't know what that pertains to. Any more context here? Gradual bends to, like, the pipes, the rails? They use the existing objects and snap into place. So whatever bends are available, those are it. They're pretty much all like 90 and 45 degree turns. Some are a little bit more like a long bend and some are a shorter bend. You can only assume. Yeah. Here. There are tubes that look like iron. There's like a whole subset of pipes that look like iron. So there's big pipes and there's small pipes that look kind of like iron. These ones are essentially like the alchemical ones, but they're meant to be like, you know, plumbing or stove piping or a boiler room, whatever you want it to be. This one has a bunch of different objects too. These ones would be more like your steel or iron. There a maximum distance between linked objects? Yes, there is, Swedish Cook. We tested it the other day. It seems like about 50 feet, 10 to 12 squares, 50, 60 feet is right where it cuts off. The size of the object doesn't affect it anymore, but the object itself's distance from each other. Okay, I am dead. I think I saw something like being able to change merge objects into something, keep it somehow. That would be variant creation, and it'll likely be in the second half of this update, if it is inevitably added. I've been pushing for that. Personal requests, community testing, pushing for the ability to group objects up like this table and save that as a preset, and then you can stamp it around the map or move it from map to map or share it on the workshop so someone can download this configuration and immediately is decorated like that, saving you time. What are you talking? Oh, did we get another raid? Hey, Sayron, how you doing? Welcome back. What you been up to? Man, it's raid day. So many raids today. Thank you. Arathon asks, could we get a color slider for the pipes tubes as well? I mean, that's a good question. I could bring it up with the devs. It would be nice if you could switch them between like this or a rusted or like different style, you know, brass, copper, or maybe, you know, like that patinaed iron or different ones. Okay, color options, choices for pipes. So I will bring that up with the devs. Okay, let's showcase the last section, which is, I know, the one everyone wants to learn about. It's multi-level and roofing. I'm going to just showcase a portion right now called level switching, which it's actually quite easy to do. This little widget in the top right corner, this new UI, has little arrows indicating if you can go down to add a floor downward, or if there's a floor, you know, above you that you can jump up to. Alternatively, you can use the plus and minus keys to do this same thing. So you don't have to click anything if you don't want. Thank you for the raid, Raiders. How was your stream? We're showcasing some of the features from our next update, Fun with Objects, which is launching in a few days on the 10th. Includes multi-level and roofing and stuff like that. I know a lot of people are excited to see it, so it's been an interesting stream, to say the least. Hope you had a good stream, Sayron. So with level switching, you can jump up and down between levels with ease. I really love this like multi-floor tavern. You can just place a token up here, right? So here we are on the decking of the 3rd floor. You can see down to the 2nd floor. There's a stair to actually transition these, but I'm an adventurer. Well, who needs stairs when you can just fly or jump everywhere? Fully functional tavern and inn, multi-story, very, very great build. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Your raids are always welcome. Also a great day to raid because we're just showing off all these fun new features. Okay, so that's level switching. We're going to open up a new map so we can discuss some of the new room types. Oh. Really need to close DA and like reopen it. It seems like there's a memory leak taken for. But it won't have transparency, Atlam. That's the big thing they're asking for. Transparency won't be available on the levels on this update. It might be implemented in the next portion of it. In Fun with Objects Part 2. I understand why people want transparency, primarily on the roofing layer, so they can do foreground layering. If you want to do foreground layering with the exports options available, you would export it all, save the map as a separate map, and then change the biome to green screen, which changes the environment to green, and then you just export the roof layer again with the entire background being green screened. So that you can take into Photoshop, GIMP, any photo editor, and remove the green in a couple of clicks, save it as a PNG or a WebP, and now you have a transparent roofing layer. That being said, I know it's extra work. People don't like it. It's hard to do if you don't know photo editing. I get it. But I encourage you all to learn new things if you don't know them. It's really good for you. It's like really fun to learn new things, being able to accomplish tasks that you didn't know how to do. But on top of that, it's the only way to do it for now, so it's kind of the way you have to. The other option is to use abstract objects, but I don't like using the green objects because they get shadows on them still. So if you have a building with a roof, it's bound to cast a shadow on this, which makes it harder to edit the green out later. That's why I recommend using the green screen biome. You could build up your multi-level map with roofing, split the save by doing save as, and then just change the biome under this tab into, from say, the forest biome to the green screen biome, which turns the entire environment outside the building's green and makes it easier for that foreground layer editing. Moving on from that, does Dungeon Alchemist have music in it? Not currently. It's a map maker and an immersion tool. Music is kind of something that isn't so necessary, really. Though I do think the devs maybe want to add sound effects and music later on. I don't know if it's something they're interested right now, though. You could definitely ping me either on Discord or email me. We can work something out and chat about it. At least you'll be on the line if we end up deciding to do it. So, let's get into what I was going to show. Various different rooms. Several new room types. Burnt House is one of the new ones available. Random structure here. Oh, I generated it with nothing on it. My bad. I had the advanced settings toggled for nothing because I sometimes like to do blank floor plans to do like an empty room. I think earlier we did the skylight doing that. Yeah, there is one sound effect in Dungeon Alchemist, and that's it. So burnt houses and rooms. Oops. Doesn't want to seem to change out the floor or the walls at all. Try something else. Some wooden walls, plaster walls, and stone walls, all with like, you know, scorch marks or burned structure. Some burned items that'll generate inside. See you later, Sayron. Have a good day. With burnt housing also comes burnt roofing. I believe there's currently only a couple, like one burnt type and then a couple abandoned types. Like if it has like moss on it, that's considered an abandoned house. Anyway. It drops on the 10th. Tabletop RPG. In addition to the new room type of burnt rooms, we have mausoleums. Generate without a door? Okay. You sealed it up. Oh, that's because I'm in the air. I'm like, why is this doing this? That's why. Okay. I was like, why is there no door? Got it. Mausoleums are great, you know, if you add them to your cemeteries or, you know, big compounds, properties, etc. Because usually, like with rich mansions and castles, they have on-site cemeteries. Anyway, mausoleum, another interesting room type. This is my favorite new room type, the wonky room. Essentially made out of like reclaimed wood and like, you know, wood they stripped off of things or found around or driftwood, whatever. Notice how it's like just not necessarily matching or kind of swollen wood. Little cuts in between it where you can see slats through. The furniture and pillars aren't much better. This little birdhouse looks like the birdhouse I made in 7th grade in shop class. Wonky also has kind of a fun little shingled roof. Topiary. So you can now make these little topiary gardens if you want. Tried me. Oh. Excuse me. It didn't generate anything inside, so probably not. Oh, there we go. There's not even a door. Oh my gosh, I did it again. I did it at the 2nd floor for some reason. So you can generate, you know, hedge gardens, and inside sometimes it'll decorate it with like little layouts like this. Some different topiary stands. There's like 4 or 5 different topiaries. I don't know why they're not populating. Maybe the garden isn't big enough. Sometimes it has to be over a certain size to populate certain items. Huh. Topiary is being less than cooperative. Usually it's like this, these little rows. Yeah, there we go. But I could foresee these new wall types. They have a half wall and a full wall of these. These would be great for like a hedge maze. Next, we have crop beds. You can generate these little crop beds and they just come pre-filled with goods, or you can hit refresh, change them out to something else. I like how these are actually working. Anyway, so you have object crop beds and room crop beds in this update. Be very easy to make farms and crops going forward. Much more straightforward. And okay, last room type I want to show is actually not necessarily a room so much as it's an extension of rooms. So we're going to add on to this up here, right? Making a second floor wonky tower. No, I'm not really sleepy. I slept great. I just get weird yawns sometimes. Just a reaction, a response my body has, even when I'm not bored. I yawn all the time. Not sleepy, not bored. Just happens. But if you go to the balcony section, you have all these different balcony types, right? You can find the wonky one for match. Say you wanted a little bump out balcony here that diagonally cut. Add a little balcony to your. It can be round, they can be just a simple square piece. It's up to you as the designer how you want this balcony to work. She does it. She's gotten used to it. Keep talking about yawns, though. I'm just going to yawn constantly. So balconies, great new addition. You can always put a little pillar under them or something and call it a day. With balconies, also just something to consider too. You can do indoor balconies as well. Not by drawing a balcony room, I guess you could. But what I would recommend doing instead is removing floor tiles. So there's this new delete floor tile feature. So technically I could make like a inner balcony here that's a mezzanine or something. Where you could have like tables below, little deck around the edge there. And I don't know if y'all noticed this, but these pillars, they dynamically adjust to fit the space above them. So if it's a short roof, it'll fit underneath it, or if it's a vaulted roof, like I just cut this open, they extended to fit the roof above. So that's actually a neat new feature as well. All pillars will do this, and you can just vault out a room by cutting out the floors between them. So either have like a balcony or just cut it out entirely and make it a 2-story building. The remove floor tool is actually quite helpful in this regard. Get rid of that whole top floor, right? Now you've got a big vaulted room, making it, a 2-story or 3 or 4 or whatever you want it to be in this case, just by clearing out the floors in between and then pushing up the building. And I could keep doing this up, and up if I needed to. But pillars will stretch up to fit. And it's nice, like, aesthetic from the inside when you do this. You go to the floor tool and you select remove or delete floors. You can do it on any level. Do it on the balcony here and have a little hole in the balcony. Or do it on the ground floor and have access to the ground below with, you know, like a fire pit, or have a hole, a tunnel going down into the underground, whatever. So much easier now to remove floor from rooms. Before you had to delete the room and then remove the walls from that space just to get access to the outside areas. But now it's much more straightforward. So you could have like an underground area here going into a cellar or something like that. You can't put a hole in the roof like that, though, Atlam. It doesn't work that way. You can't just take the remove floor tile thing and take a section of the roof out. It does not work. You can't break the roof, right? If you want to remove the roof in a section, say you wanted like a skylight. I showed this earlier. I'll show it again. It's pretty straightforward. But in order to do it, there would need to be technically another room in this space, right? So the same method we just did, but instead of removing the floor, okay, just add this back in. I'll just undo it. So now I'm going to go into the same type, wonky, and I'm just going to make this like a square in the center. And I'm going to make it generate without any walls, so it just generates a flat floor piece. This is now technically, these 4 squares are considered a separate room to Dungeon Alchemist. If I click here, it's one room. If I click here, it's another. What that does for roofing, right? If there was a second floor, this would work. Unfortunately, I don't think it'll work with this. Here now. But now technically this center piece, I might be considered a separate room. Let's see. See? I could do something like this if I wanted to, right? Or I could just erase the roof and now there's like a skylight or an opening. But that's really going to be the only way, because our algorithm right now dynamically adjusts to the shape. You can't like break a hole in it. We would likely have to provide a roof with a hole in it. But at this point, right, now that you've got this, something like this object, so it's possible, but tricky. So we've kind of showcased multi-level and how to generate upward. Essentially just push up, right? Once you're at the roof of that level, you generate a new floor. In this case, I could just do a whole new floor if I wanted to, generate the entire thing, add a new level. Very straightforward. Hopefully this doesn't crash. It's laggy. Notice it's still removed there from before. Worked perfectly. Oh man, I broke it because I generated it without walls. When you're generating a structure that's multi-level, be sure to give it walls. Pro tip. Roofing you can change very easily. There's tons of roof options, so you just pick the roof you want, change it. If you want a flat roof instead, change it to a flat roof instead. If you want an angled roof, tons of angled options to look through. Depending on the roof itself, the shape of the roof is automatically dictated around type of roofing. Oh, I like that little patio over that. Oh my. Oh my. I didn't realize balconies could have roofing. That's awesome. I like that. That one's a little interesting though. On occasion, it'll make weird joining choices. It's not going to be done. Like right here, this doesn't make any sense to a roof to have it recede back to the wall where water would build up. That's not a normal roof thing, right? But in this iteration of the roofing update, that'll be kind of par for the course. Eventually, they'll fix the algorithm so the roof would meet up against the wall and have like a smooth downward fascia. Exporting a multi-level map will work just like exporting a normal map. You just click the export button, and then in the export menu, there's new options to say, hey, I want to just export this floor, all floors and roof, whatever. Very, very simple, very straightforward. Every floor is exported as its own separate image and accompanying or video and accompanying data file if you use a VTT. It's really not that complex, I swear. Like, I've had hundreds of questions about this particular thing. How is it going to export for multi-level? How's it going to work for Foundry? How's it? It's the same. It's the exact same. No changes because we wanted it to be as simple and straightforward and work with as many virtual tabletops as possible. The only difference is each level in a multi-level map will be treated as their own map upon export. Look at some more roofing options here. But see, like, this doesn't make any sense. This would be shingled normally, and like I did roofing for years, right? It would shingle up against this wall. The roofing would be flat up against this, not have this backward facing where a pool of water could build up or destroy the house. Does that make sense? It's annoying, but that's just how it's going to be to start, my friend. Better than nothing, I should say. With roofing, you can also remove roofing. There's this erase roof tab, so if you don't want a roof on a room, or maybe it's an ancient ruin without a roofing, like if you generated, an abandoned ruin that the roof collapsed ages ago, or the temple or something out in the open where it makes sense that it would be, exposed without a roof. Oops. Just go into the roof tool, erase the roof on that one, and leave it open. Very easily. So there's two ways to remove roofs. That's one, right? The other way is under the Edit Room tab. You select that room, and then it'll get rid of it. So either under that, where you could used to do the immersion ceiling to set the gray ceiling so you wouldn't see the sky anymore. That's essentially all that does now. But under the roof tab is the erase roof option, which is much more straightforward in my opinion. Let's make this a big vaulted room here. Erase the flooring on every floor on the way up. So now this should be... Did I erase the roof on here? Like just a big 3-story building. That's all it is. Warehouses, mansions, compounds, castles, towers. Going to be so easy to do this kind of stuff going forward. Decks, balconies, mezzanines, all that stuff is going to be possible now. And remember, when you're shaping those spaces, you can kind of do a similar thing with the room shaping tool. So like I could have done a rounded skylight if I wanted to, if I'd cut out a round section above. If you need more than 10 floors in a single map, you make a separate map and then just move your players to that floor, you know, the bottom floor of that tower when they get to floor 11. So it would be 2 separate maps, and besides, you wouldn't want all of that in one map. It would run very poorly. Think of it as like 10 maps pancaked together running at the same time. Eventually, you're going to run into a bottleneck with building up that big. Hidden Boss, can you elaborate on that question a little bit? You want to build underground? You push down to go underground and then just generate the structure you want. So I'm just going to keep going with the wonky here. Crash, it's low. I do know there are like buildings that have like dozens of floors, like what is it? Castle Ravenloft is like 20 floors or something. So it'd be hard to fit them all in one map. Realistically, both from a design perspective and also from like being able to have your players explore it reasonably, it's a good idea to split up such large maps into smaller, you know, each floor is its own map. Logistically, that's how it would export in Dungeon Alchemist, but I think the 5 floor up, 5 floor down thing, I don't know if it's hard locked or more just a recommendation based on, you know, how they've experienced Dungeon Alchemist handle those things. So notice here I built an underground room and I popped a staircase in it. It dynamically cut the floor above to add that stair. No matter which stair you add, it'll do this. So if you add a, you know, a round stair, whatever, the spiral stairs cut out a 2-hole area above, unless they're like a massive one. Like this one here cuts out way more. I don't think that's really necessary. That is way too big. Anyway, but this one here, it's a couple hole cut. You can put banisters around the edges of these, you know, using like the half wall banisters. Either the freestanding walls are great for this, or the regular walls are great. You can just go into like add new walls, pick something that's like a half, like that, put it around the edge. There's some that match this style of stair, but I just threw in whatever to give you the demo. Stairs is very great, and they're very navigable in first person as well. You can transition between the floors very easily in first-person camera. Now, notice I'm underground. You can carve back the environment just so you can just see everything. It shows you the foundation shape of buildings above you, and that's a great tool if you want to try and meet up with another room. So let's say I wanted to build a tunnel that met up under this structure here, and then put another staircase on this side, or a ladder or whatever. You get the idea. So underground traversal is possible. Let's add one more bit to that really quickly. We can even use this as like just a cave. It doesn't have to be, you know, an open space. So technically I could go through and like delete the walls here and the floors if I really wanted to. Where it's all floating, it's weird, but like this, and maybe put a door on this side. I'm just going to add whatever wood walls to speed this up. It's going to be a door at the end of the day. Right, so let's say, you know, once you go through this space, it's now considered cave or tunnel, right? So you could actually carve into this with the terrain tools. Make like a little tunnel into this. Yeah, the room above can be tiny and the floors below could be massive. They don't have to match. I just did it to match so it was easy to put a stair in. You could just do like a ladder going down a single hatch in a tiny cellar room going into a massive compound underneath if you wanted to. Notice this tree here? I already kind of did that to show you all. I was demonstrating this. I'm gonna kind of pop a token in here and walk through. There, not in the right place. Place is too short for that. Let me pick the wrong stair, or I just had it in the wrong angle. I'm still getting used to the stairs myself. There's a lot of changes. Dungeon Alchemist is fundamentally like a different program now. But here's like a tree and its roots reaching through the ground. You could raise these up and only have like a little bit. Man, that's weird that there's a roofing there still, even after I deleted it. Huh. Weird. But yeah, you could tunnel into this, tunnel down. You could do all sorts of stuff. Add water areas and stuff like that. It's very, very different. Let's just say that. So much more you can do now. Okay, so we've talked about building underground. We've talked about roofing. We talked about pretty much everything with multi-level that I wanted to discuss. I'm going to open up another map, and then we'll kind of keep answering your questions that came in during this module. And we'll wrap up, because I'm already 50 minutes past the hour. I got to work on the trailer today. Got to finish it up. Well, at least the rough draft of it. So I need to wrap up and do that. So I answered DM Tell's question. If two rooms are next to each other, this is Lalandra's question. If two rooms slightly different starting heights, do they still have to be 1 square apart? I'm assuming so. I don't think that was addressed. But we'll find out. We'll come back to this map in a minute. Still generating the terrain. What is going on? Anytime I've generated a new map today, it's been heckin' slow. I think the longer you leave DA open in this current build I'm in, it slowly memory leaks and becomes sluggish and runs poorer and poorer the longer it's open. Just felt like it's like I've been kind of slowly weighed down and like trudging through like sludge as I've been using it throughout the stream. DM tells we don't support foreground layering at all. If you want that to work in DA, you'd have to put trees in a green screen background, which is we do offer a green screen entire environment. So you could put trees in that map and then edit the ground out using, you know, Photoshop, the green area. Chroma key removal is like 3 clicks in Photoshop and most photo editors and online photo editors. And then you could save it as a PNG and then make a transparent, you know, tree layer. I'll be honest with you though, like it is a lot of work. You got to line it up perfectly with the map that this first map you made where the tree canopy would be the base and it would be a normal map. So you make your first map and then you gut said map with a copied map and then do a ton of editing on the back end to make sure it works right. But unfortunately, that's not a core supported feature at this time. A lot of foreground stuff has been added to the market in like the last 2 years. and we're still in early access. So we're kind of waiting for them to hammer out all their details and that stuff before we start offering it. That being said, the devs are investigating like PNG exports for like the roofing layer at least, or to make tiles and tile creation with a transparent background. I don't know if they'll do that for trees though. That would still be a very niche ask. At the end of the day, I think your players like can suspend their disbelief and realize they're under the trees, not on top of them, especially in a game when they can shoot fireballs from their fingers. So I tend to just not put too much emphasis on it so my players don't as well until it's something that's more stock and readily available on the market. What a lot of people do is they'll make their base map in a regular biome, and then they'll export that map as an image. And you have that map image, you create a new map in the green screen biome that is the same size, right? When you're in the green screen biome, it's bright green. I'm not going to load it on the stream. It makes my face disappear because of the green screen behind me. But when you're in the green screen biome, you go into the tracing layer and you import the map that you just exported, right? And it'll match up perfectly. And then you put trees in the same places you had them on this green screen map. And then you export that green screen map, edit out the green in your photo editor. The maps will be identical in size. The first map is the background layer, and the new map is the foreground layer. So it's like a few extra steps to get it to match up. Anyway, let's see here. Lilandra wanted to know if we could have two buildings of the same, like right next to each other if one's slightly raised. I think the same is going to... I guess it could be much closer than one square. So it looks like they've improved that exponentially, but it still does have a limit. It used to be this, but it's like at least cut in half or almost 2/3 of what it used to be. So that's impressive. Another set of raiders. Wow. Thank you so much. Is it Flipperama Deverdade? I like your name. So, Lilandra, are you still here? That's impressive, actually. In fact, most of our... Like, that is really close. Like, this is like California close. This is what neighbors' homes look like in California on a beach town. Thank you again for the raid, by the way. Much appreciated, raiders. Hope you had a fun stream today. I do like that. I think that's about as minimum as they could get, really. Dang, that's impressive, though. What do y'all think of this? Because before they had to be a square apart if they were at different heights. This is great if you're doing like a terraced village that's like a little bit higher, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. Honestly, this is very impressive to me. I didn't realize this was a feature in the update. Very cool. May have been an unintentional thing. Just part of how they were designing everything and to work. And it ended up being better. Anyway, okay, I think we've covered pretty much everything. Let me make sure I didn't miss any questions. I've got to wrap this stream up. So there was Lilandra's. Legumi, can you put a pit on a second floor? A pit item? I don't think so. I think pits extend down, and so they'd have to be on a ground level. But you can carve a pit manually with the hole cutting tool and make it like a hole or a balcony or whatever. So like if you take the hole cutting tool, you could do something like this, and there you have a pit down to the floor below. But let's try a pit item and see what happens. That broken floor works okay. That one will work okay, but like this one here, oh, weird. Okay. It does, but it doesn't. That is buggy. I was not expecting this to happen. You can put some of these. What does this look like from underneath? That is really weird. I don't think this is expected behavior or will probably last past the, the update. Like when you put a pit outside, it's gonna put a hole there, right? And I wish that door was functional. That'd be cool. You put a pit inside, it makes this area like visible. Let's put the same pit. So I could intend to like dig through there. Oh, it cuts it out immediately. So I guess you can, at least on the base floor. The ones above, that's buggy. Okay. Yep, I think I've covered pretty much everything. Make sure there's no questions on the list that I missed. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Unfortunately, y'all, this stream has run almost an hour long, and I've got somewhere to be. I've got to wrap this up. So thank you, everyone, for being here. Unfortunately, if I didn't get, a couple questions right here at the end, unfortunately, that's the nature of these streams. If they run long, I gotta cut out when I gotta cut out. But the stream did run 3 hours today, so y'all got a good preview, got to see everything in depth, multi-level, roofing, all these new features that we're adding in this update. Exit DA. So, by the way, our normal stream schedule will return on Monday, so it'll be Map Maker Monday on Monday and office hours on Wednesday. I will be doing the Map Maker Monday stream though with the dev build, so I'll be able to add some of the new grave markers and stuff, and I'll probably go through and mix some of them in with the old ones, so it's not so like drastic. Though the drastic change could be indicative of like a time change or a shift in mentality or just a different part of the area. Load that up. Pillars dynamically extend to the room inside of them. So if the room is really tall, they'll extend to the top height. If the room is short, it'll fit automatically to the shorter space. Yeah, loading up this map was so quick. Let's just load up a new one. Watch what happens. I guarantee you there was like a little memory leak. It seemed like, it took like 5 seconds to load a new map after I haven't been in DA for like a minute. But if I'm in it for like an hour, it takes like a minute to load a new map. Anyway, thank you everyone for being here. Had a lot of fun hanging out. I appreciate you all hanging out today and, learning about the update. I appreciate your hype and excitement for this update. Now, I do have a quick question for the audience before we wrap up. If you have any feedback about this update and what you've seen today, positive, negative, I'd love to hear it. So if you like what you saw, let us know. If you didn't, let us know. If you had a favorite thing, let us know, etc. Would love to hear your insight on this update and what your feelings are about it. The devs have put a lot of effort into this update, and it took longer than anticipated to get roofing to a point that it was more satisfactory, like it is now. So it was delayed, this update, quite a bit. It was originally going to be about 6-7 months, and it turned into 8, 9, 10, 12 months. And so we appreciate your infinite patience as we worked out these details and got, roofing and multi-level to what we feel is our standard of quality that you have come to expect. That being said, there's still much on the horizon for updates. We still have half of Fun with Objects left to update, and then, 4, I believe, more straight stretch goals. Anyway, if you enjoyed the stream today, if you enjoyed the showcase or enjoyed what you saw in the showcase, let us know in the chat or on social media or in Discord. If you can drop in general, say, hey, had fun in the stream today or really enjoyed the showcase, excited for Fun with Objects, thank you. Team, whatever. I'm sure they'll get a kick out of it. We're going to run a quick Dungeon Alchemist themed ad, and then we're going to wrap up the stream, okay? Thank you, everyone, for being here. Glad the stream didn't crash today. That was awesome. By the way, the ad is Dungeon Alchemist themed. It's not somebody else's ad, so please check it out. It's actually pretty funny. I wrote it.
You stand before the long, dark road to the fabled realm of Goyak-Ta, and before...
What do we see?
I don't know, a goblin.
I kill him.
But before she does, I, Gilliam of Firth, demand to know the goblin's name.
Hi, my name is Woblin.
Where do you live there, Woblin?
I don't think that's relevant.
Well, but I, Gilliam of Firth, demand to seek the goblin's abode.
Clever, find family, kill entire bloodline. I like it.
Seriously, we're doing this? Okay, well, won't be needing that anymore, will I?
Ever get caught by your players with your pants down? Dungeon Alchemist lets you create wonderful maps for any encounter in seconds.
Oh, Woblin, that's a very impressive cheese collection you've got there.
Yeah, it is quite impressive, yes. But you know what's more impressive? This map I have to the
Fabled realm of Goyak-Ta. Please take it and leave. Close the door behind you.
Mr. Woblin, I cannot help but notice that you have a secret tunnel underneath your cabinet. Care to explain?
Download Dungeon Alchemist, the AI-powered map maker, on Steam today.
All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. Remember, Fun with Objects launches on July 10th, just 5 days away. I'm sure your patience is running thin, but I know you can survive until then. We're excited to share this update with you. Thank you for tuning in today. And remember, Dungeon Alchemist is on sale between now and the end of the Steam Summer Sale, 10 a.m. Pacific Time, July 10th. So pretty much the day we're launching the update. So if you are interested in snagging a copy of Dungeon Alchemist, you can get it for 20% off for a limited time. If you already own a copy of Dungeon Alchemist, maybe time to gift one to that friend or family member or DM you love who is interested in their own map-making adventures or maybe even DMing themselves. And if you know people who are interested in it and have been sitting on the fence, let them know about the sale so they can jump on that deal, okay? Appreciate you all being here so very, very much. Oh, guys, it's funny and accurate. It can be both things. It can be both. Thank you so much for attending the stream, whether you were actively chatting or you were lurking or you were one of our very diligent mods today, making sure everyone's questions were getting addressed and all that feedback was collected. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Again, my name is Mac, the community manager for Dungeon Alchemist. We'll see you next time I give a damn. Mac out. Bye. We're going to wrap it. Yeah, thank you for the raiders today. Much appreciated. Have a wonderful evening, afternoon, night, whatever it is for you. We'll see you on Monday with the return of Mapmaker Monday. Mac out. See you later, everyone.